Tell us about Vizarelli.
Vizera is a new startup based in Moscow. It's currently located at Skolkovo in the management system, and it's a 3D photorealism company based on a gaming engine. And we're targeting urban planners and city planners to help them understand how cities are created and how buildings are created. So a good example of that, for example, is Sochi, the Winter Olympics site. So in one common view on the interactive model, we are actually producing the entire city, over 800 buildings, the inside and the outside of the buildings. But for the first time ever, which is completely unique, you'll be able to walk around the building in 3D.
We can see everything?
You can see everything. You can walk up to other people in the building, you can see objects, you can walk around objects, you can walk from one room to another, and for the first time ever, you can choose where you want to walk. So it's like you and I are now wandering around this building, and we can go up to different rooms and everything else. You can do exactly the same thing. Until now, you've only ever been able to do that in 2D, working on a flat plane, and you've never been able to look round corners, you've never been able to go into rooms or anything else. So for the first time ever, because of gaming technology, you can wander anywhere in a building that you want to wander.
How the technology could be helpful in the future?
The Winter Olympics is a very interesting project. They're combining architectural data with environmental data, with energy data, but also with health and safety. So say, for example, if you want to model how 60,000 people are going to get out of one stadium, should there be an attack or should there be a natural disaster, Vizera and working with other parties are actually work out how 60,000 people are going to get out of that building. And you can see 60,000 people trying to leave through various doors in the building. And at the design stage, you can put in more doors, you can make the doors bigger, or you can put the doors in different places. So you can model how. Now, before that, you were looking at a piece of paper and a computer model trying to see it. But with Vizera, you can actually see these 60,000 people all trying to cram through one door and realize that one door's not enough.
How that technology could change the architecture?
Oh, dramatically. Apparently, I'm not allowed to say that it's a sea change because that's the wrong word. At the moment, architects only use 3D at the very, very end of the process, because to render an architectural drawing can take as much as 2 days. Such a long process. The file size is so big. This product can render literally in 10 minutes. So you'll be able to use 3D all the way through the design process. So we're now influencing the design by 3D. The other thing is the file size, the compression technology is unique. So what used to be a gigabyte file is a megabyte file. So you can now share it over the internet. So if you're an architect in New York and I'm an architect in Barcelona and we have another architect in London, we can now share our ideas over the internet, which we've never been able to do before. So it'll be very, very exciting.
So what do you think about Moscow in architecture plan and architectural?
And not so much Moscow, but interesting, for example, is St. Petersburg. We're doing a lot of work with heritage cities like Prague. It's very, very easy to build a new city because you're starting from a flat sheet, a green field, whatever you want to call it. But trying to put environmental solutions and energy solutions into a heritage city is almost impossible because you're working with buildings that are hundreds of years old, and trying to put a new glass modern complex into that, or a glass and steel complex, you sometimes contradict the surroundings. So, for example, in St. Petersburg, we're now building a common view of the city so that if you drop a new building into it, you can see what it's actually going to look like in 3D. And you can walk around it and you can see the effect that it has on all the neighboring streets.
So, you live in Moscow now?
I know. I live at 38,000 feet, unfortunately. I'm constantly flying between one place and another. But I spend every 1 week in 4 here in Moscow. We've just opened a joint venture in the US, so I'm spending a lot of time in Atlanta, and I live in Budapest, so I'm constantly on an aeroplane flying around.
But how do you find Moscow? What do you think about this city?
For technology, it's very, very interesting. I think it's a very undervalued region of the world in terms of technology innovation. There's some very, very clever ideas going on in mobile, there's some very, very clever ideas going on in the internet space and the gaming space. I think the problem has always been is in terms of, how do you protect your intellectual property, how do you finance the project, which is the same as any other city in the world. But I think some of these new initiatives like Skolkovo, like management schools and everything else, start to bring all of those ideas together, which I think is critically important. That's how Silicon Valley worked. It started off with a little idea, then it got a bit bigger, then it got a bit bigger. But it's a great way to concentrate all the minds and all the money all in one place. That's why it's important.
What we need to do to make Moscow intelligent inside and outside?
I think the interesting piece is to, first of all, bring the minds together. And I don't think it can just be political people. It has to be innovative people, it has to be banking people, it has to be financiers, it has to be people in charge of intellectual property, and bring them all together and try and work out what we have to change first. Because there's no point building an absolutely beautiful house and then find that there's no power for the house. Because nobody's going to move into the house because you can't turn the lights on and you can't run your refrigerator. So going out and building a beautiful building and then expecting people to come and fill it never works. So I think the country and I think the state has to look at foreign direct investment. How do we attract more money into Russia? The role of VTB as a funding organisation, how we're going to manage intellectual property. All of these things have to be sorted out at the same time, or better still, first. If we sort those out, you will naturally start to attract talent. So people won't be leaving Moscow to go to Silicon Valley, they'll be coming from Silicon Valley to come here.
Thank you very much.
Absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you very much indeed.